Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I want to thank everybody for coming today on this Thanksgiving Day. And today we'll be doing Srimad Bhagawatam, Canto 2, the Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 7, Scheduled Incarnations with Specific Functions, verse 50. So yam te bihitas tata soham te bihitas tata Bhagavan Vishvabhavana Bhagavan Vishvabhavanaha Samasena Hari Nanyad Samasena Harir Nanyad Anyasmat Sad Asach Cha Yat Anyasmat Sad Asach Chayat Soyam te bihitas tata Bhagavan Vishvabhavanaha Samasena Harir Nanyat Anyasmat Sadas Sach Chayat Soyam te bihitas tata Bhagavan Vishvabhavanaha Samasena Harir Nanyat Anyasmat Sad Sach Chayat Soyam te bihitas tata Bhagavan Vishvabhavanaha Samasena Harir Nanyat Anyasmat Sach Asach Chayat. Everyone? Soyam te bihitas tata Bhagavan Vishvabhavanaha Samasena Harir Nanyat Anyasmat Sad Asach Chayat Soyam te bihitas tata Bhagavan Vishvabhavanaha Samasena Harir Nanyat Anayasmat Sat Asach Chayat Soyam te bihitas tata Bhagavan Vishvabhavanaha Samasena Harir Nanyat Anyasmat Sad Asach Chayat Soyam te bihitas tata Bhagavan Vishvabhavanaha Samasena Harir Nanyat Anyasmat Sach Chayat Soyam te vihitas tata Bhagavan Vishwabhavanaha Samasena Harirnanyat Anyasmat Sat Asatchayat. Word for word. Sa, that. Ayam, the same. Te, unto you. Abhihita, explained by me. Tata, my dear son. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Vishva Bhavana, the creator of the manifested worlds. Samasena, in brief. Hari, without Hari, the Lord. Na, never. Anyat, anything else. Anyasmat, being the cause of. Sat, manifested or phenomenal. Asat, nominal. Cha, and. Yat, whatever there may be. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. My dear son, I have now explained in brief the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is creator of the manifested worlds. Without Him, Hari, the Lord, there is no other cause of the phenomenal and nominal existences. Repeat after me. My dear son, I have now explained in brief the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is creator of the manifested worlds. Without Him, Hari, the Lord, there are no other causes of the phenomenal and nominal existences. And then I have, because who is speaking here? Lord Brahma, and he is speaking to his son. So here are some pictures so you can get that clear in your mind, the setting, that here Lord Brahma is speaking to Narada Muni. So these are some pictures here. Purport. Since we generally have the experience of the temporary material and conditioned souls trying to lord it over the material worlds, Brahmaji explained to Narada Dev that this temporary world is the work of the external potency of the Lord, and that the conditioned souls struggle here for existence are the marginal potency of the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. There is no cause for all these phenomenal activities but Him, Hari, the Supreme Lord, who is the primeval cause of all causes. And this is a picture that the BBT artist did of Krishna being the Karuna, the Parama Karuna, the cause of all causes. This does not mean, however, that the Lord Himself is distributed impersonally. He is aloof from all these interactions of the external and marginal potencies. In the Bhagavad Gita 9:4, it is confirmed that by His potencies alone, He is present everywhere and anywhere. Everything is manifested, rests on His potency only, but He, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is always aloof from everything. The potency and the potent are simultaneously one and different from one another. One should not deprecate the Supreme Lord for the creation of this miserable world, just as one should not blame the king for creating a prison house in the government. The prison house is a necessary institution of the governmental establishment for those who are disobedient to the laws of the government. Similarly, this material world, full of miseries, is a temporary creation of the Lord for those who have forgotten him and are trying to lord it over the false manifestation. He, however, is always anxious to get the fallen souls back home, back to Godhead, and for this he has given so many chances to the conditioned souls via the authoritative scriptures, his representatives, and personal incarnations also. Since he has no direct attachment to this material world, he is not to be blamed for the creation. And so I was thinking right away about Krishna's opulence of renunciation. And so because for me, this opulence of renunciation was probably the hardest to appreciate. And it took a lot of prayer, and I went to Gambhira, the place where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spent 18 years of his life, and I begged for mercy. Please, Lord, give me a glimpse, give me an appreciation for this opulence of renunciation. I didn't really fathom it. In fact, I had more of a repulsion for that, like renunciation. Oh, I don't want to be renounced. I don't want to do without. I don't want to suffer without, by having this kind of detachment. I'm an attached person by nature. So in doing so, I decided I would look to see in Prabhupada's body of Krishna conscious literatures where the examples of Krishna acting in this opulence of renunciation. And right away I found in chapter 29 of Krishna book that Krishna, in the middle of the rasa dance, and we all know when young boys and young girls are dancing, there's a huge attachment and a tremendous amount of pleasure. That's why there's so many nightclubs in the world, because men and women dancing is one of the highest pleasures in the material world that you can do for hours and hours. So Krishna himself, he dances in the dead of the night with the beautiful cowherd maidens of Raj. But there was one instance where the gopis, they began to feel proud, thinking of themselves as the most fortunate women in the universe due to being favored by the company of Krishna. And he is also known as Keshava. And when he understood this, that they were feeling this pride, then in order to show them his causeless mercy and to curb their pride, because it's hard for me to imagine that it was false pride, because of course anything in relation to Krishna is so amazingly wonderful. But in this instance, Krishna immediately disappeared from the scene, exhibiting his opulence of renunciation. Very rarely would you see any man, who was dancing with lots of ladies all of a sudden just disappear. They would be the center of attention, and they would be enjoying that kind of a thing, and they wouldn't feel like disappearing. So, but Krishna, in any circumstance, if he sees people are those devotees around him, even Narada Muni felt some pride. And so when pride cometh, they say pride cometh before the fall. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always full with the 6 kinds of opulences. And in this instance, the opulence of renunciation, it confirmed Krishna's total non-attachment. He is always self-sufficient and not dependent on anything. This is the platform on which his transcendental pastimes are enacted. And one can understand, because Krishna is always in the mood of reciprocation. And pride gets in between our relationship from Krishna. So we're beginning to think it's about us, when actually it's always about Krishna. So that becomes an obstacle to our service, and Krishna just disappears. So we have to all guard against this pride, because Krishna will leave us, and that's the last thing we need, is Krishna to leave us. And another instance where Krishna exhibited his opulence of renunciation was when he left the battlefield during his fight with Jarasandha. The Lord had a special purpose. He had another engagement, a previous commitment. He wanted to answer the letter that had been written by Rukmini, and he wanted to rush to her aid to kidnap her because this was her desire. So he thought, well, why should I worry about this little demon Jarasandha? And so he didn't even worry about the fact that people were going to look at him like, oh, you're scared of Jarasandha. And he didn't care about any of the opinions of the fools and rascals. Let them think. And so I don't know if any of you have been to Dakor. Dakor is a place where, because Dakor is a place where the deity by the name of Ranchor Roy, he resides in this beautiful temple there in Dakor. Ranchor Roy is the name of Krishna when he leaves the battlefield. And it's celebrated because when he wanted to leave, actually this deity, he left Dwarka and went to Dakor. And the devotee that he asked to drive his chariot, he got very tired on the way. So Krishna drove the chariot and his devotee slept in the chariot as they drove. So Ranchor Roy is, he's celebrated because he didn't leave the battlefield out of fear. He left the battlefield out of love for Rukmini. And later on, he would dispatch Jarasandha. So this is another instance of Krishna showing his renunciation, opulence of renunciation. So going further, these words phenomenal and nominal I thought were pretty interesting words, and Shyamasundar Prabhu had asked a question to Srila Prabhupada, and he said, Shyamasundar asked, the senses perceive the changing phenomenal world, but according to Plato, the nominal world is perceived by the mind. It is also, it is this world that is absolute, ideal, permanent, and universal. Would you say that ultimate reality is ideal in this Platonic sense? Srila Prabhupada said, not ideal, factual. Param satyam dhimahi. We offer our obeisances into the absolute truth. This relative world is a perverted reflection of the absolute world. And you see the picture here of the tree being reflected in the river below. Prabhupada explains to us in the scripture that this material world is simply like a reflection of the spiritual world. It's kind of a mirage, you know, we grasp to try to enjoy it, but it just doesn't have as much substance as we, the spirit soul, wants, because it's temporary, it's very temporary, it's illusion. So it is just like a shadow. A tree reflected in the water may appear to be exactly like the tree itself, but it is a perverted reflection. The actual tree is there. That's the spiritual world. Similarly, this relative world is a reflection of the absolute world. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is clearly stated that this manifest creation, which is but a reflection, has its beginning in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I wanted to look up to be really clear about what does phenomenal and nominal mean, because oftentimes, I learned some study techniques, and if you hit words that you're not exactly clear about, what happens is you automatically feel tired. So I was taught that whenever I study, I have a dictionary right with me. Now we just have to look it up on the internet. It's pretty easy, but this means by having the dictionary there and being able to look up the words, you stay conscious and very activated, and you don't get all exhausted from what they call misunderstood words. So phenomenal is of or relating to a phenomenon, extraordinary, outstanding, remarkable, a phenomenal achievement. Or it's saying philosophy known or perceived by the senses rather than the mind. So this is very mental platform, very much the mental platform. And nomenon it's in the philosophy of Kant, it means an object as it is in itself, independent of the mind. That means something that's real, there's substance, as opposed to phenomenon. So nominal is also called a thing in itself. There's reality. It's not a shadow or a reflection or a memory of the thing. It is the thing itself. So in Bhagavad Gita, Karma Yoga 339, it says, in the ordinary prison house, criminals are kept within bars. Similarly, the criminals who are disobedient to the laws of the Lord are shackled by sex life. That's the biggest bond here in this world, is this sex attachment, so-called love, lust. There's attraction. So it's saying here, the advancement of material civilization on the basis of sense gratification means increasing the duration of this material existence for a living entity. Therefore, this lust is the symbol of ignorance by which the living entity is kept within the material world. While one enjoys sense gratification, it may be that there is some feeling of happiness, but actually, that so-called feeling of happiness is the ultimate enemy of the sense enjoyer, because that's what keeps us. It's like a person who they take their first shot of a drug. There's this amazing feeling. And every time they try to take that drug again, they want that same feeling, but they're chasing something that is so illusory and lasts just a short time. The tickle of sex life, it's such a short thing, and what do you have to do? Work so hard day in and day out to maintain wife and family. Nothing against it. Proper grihasta ashram in relation to service to Krishna is wanted. We appreciate that, but when we're mad after the next infatuation or the next love affair or the next excitement, then that is something that can really cause great disturbance in family life, society, and our personal spiritual life. In another instance, we see that, and Jat Bharat is speaking to King Rahugana. He's explaining about this temporary world. It's so temporary, and we know that Jat Bharat, Bhagavatam is pretty amazing because you follow lifetimes where a person may come in one lifetime as one person and then be born again like Jat Bharat. And, he was born in a family, a high family, but as he appeared as if he was a fool. But he wasn't a fool at all. He was actually greatly knowledgeable. He was already liberated. And so he, at some point, was put into the field as a scarecrow, just because his family thought he's useless. What can he do? He just acted as if he didn't want to be involved in this crazy stuff that's going on. And so they put him in the field and figured, well, at least he'll have some use. But what happened was the worshippers of Kali came along and they thought, oh, he's a moron, we'll grab him and offer him to Goddess Kali. But that didn't work out very well for them because he was already surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord. And it says in Bhagavad Gita, declare it boldly, my devotee will never be vanquished. And so Goddess Kali, she became furious with her own worshippers and said, how dare you bring me some person who's already offered to Vishnu? And she literally cut off all of their heads. So Jat Bharat, he was preaching to the king, and this instance was, after this all happened, he was taken into the king's service to be somebody who carried the palanquin of the king. But because he was more interested in not stepping on the ants, he was hopping to avoid all the insects on the road. And at threat of great chastisement, he didn't care for his particular material situation or his material body, so he wasn't at all worried about the king's comfort. He just didn't want to kill the ants. So the king could understand, well, wait a second, this guy's, he could risk everything. He's so detached. He has the opulence of renunciation so strongly fixed in him that he would risk his own well-being not to kill ants. Little ants, who cares about them? The king is thinking, and he thought, something's up. I need to find out more from this person. So Jat Bharat was explaining, by understanding the original cause of different varieties, one can understand everything. If we understand Krishna, the original cause of everything, we do not need to separately study the subsidiary varieties. So he this supposed moron began to instruct the king, and the king took it seriously. He is an enlightened being. Jai Shri Shri Panchatattva Ki Jai. And he went on to say, therefore, from the very beginning it is said, Satyam Padam Dhimahi, from Srimad Bhagavatam 1:1:1. One has to concentrate one's understanding on the supreme truth, Krishna or Vasudeva. The word Vasudeva indicates the supreme personality of Godhead, who is the cause of all causes. So when one is in that understanding that Krishna is the cause of all causes, they're properly situated. Matstani sarvabhutani nachaham teshas stitaha, Bhagavad Gita 9:4. This is a summary of the phenomenal and nominal philosophy. The phenomenal world depends on the nominal existence. Similarly, everything exists by virtue of the potency of the Supreme Lord. Although due to our ignorance, the Supreme Lord is not perceived in everything. For the self-realized soul, they see Krishna in every atom. They see Krishna in the ant's heart. Jat Bharat saw Krishna in the ant's heart. He did not see the difference between ant or king. He was Uttama Adhikari. He had equal vision. And this is the situation. We are heading towards that, where we're seeing everything as part and parcel of Krishna. And not, oh, how I can take advantage of this situation because they happen to be they're big, they're king. They can maybe give me a kingdom. No, Jat Bharat didn't care about that. He cared more about the ants, so many ants. In Srimad Bhagavatam 11:2, it says, just as a dream is merely a creation of one's intelligence but has no factual substance, similarly, material, lamentation, illusion, happiness, and distress, and the acceptance of the material body under the influence of Maya are all my creations of my illusory energy. In other words, material existence has no essential reality. It's poof, it's will of the wisp. Here today, gone tomorrow. So the purport in that shlok, it's saying the word deha apiti indicates the living entity falsely identifies himself with the external material body and thus transmigrates from one body to another. Apati also indicates great suffering or misfortune. Because of such false identification under the influence of illusion, the living entity experiences the miserable symptoms described herein. So we can see here in the picture where from the animals, they're becoming humans and, different, and then they're dying and then becoming humans again. For devotees, we're always trying to see how we can benefit every living entity. Even we have worms that are serving Krishna because their excrement is wonderful fertilizer and serving Srimati Tulsi Devi. So the worms get the benefit, Agyata Sukriti, to be able to serve the pure devotee of the Lord. But this is all by the mercy of devotees. So for us, the mercy of the devotee is so very important. It goes on to say, Maya means the false conception that anything can exist without Lord Krishna or for any purpose other than the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Although the conditioned living entities are trying to enjoy material sense gratification, the result is always painful. Such painful experiences turn the conditioned soul toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So suffering, really, it closes us down. It's like it makes us, I don't want to try to enjoy, because along with the enjoyment comes attachment. And with attachment comes pain and suffering because of the temporary nature of this world, the illusion that is here. So we've tried, it hurt, ouch, I'm going to Krishna now. Done. Done this crazy illusion. And so it's saying here, they are merely mental concoctions, and one should cleanse oneself of material designations. That for me, when I was going through my dark night of the soul, it was who am I? I know I'm not this body, I've got the theory, but I've been so absorbed in thinking I was this or that, which was just false. And now I'm not. Now who am I? Even as a devotee, we go through these kinds of experiences, like because of false identification. I am this post, for example. No, I'm not this post. This post is very temporary. And along with the post, there's certain siddhis or shaktis or to fulfill your responsibilities. But they stay with the post. Just like Arjuna, he had all these weapons and all these facilities, but when it came time, he hung them up. He said, okay, done, because I'm going on the path to follow Krishna. Badrinath, there's a special path, Mahapant, and the Pandavas went there on that path, back to home, back to Godhead. So one should cleanse oneself of material designations and wake up to the all-pervading reality of the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. And are there any questions or comments?